Hi, my name is Mary Moore. I'm the Reference and Adult Services Manager at Huntsville Public Library, and I'm doing a screencast today about SMART goal writing with Marianne's help. I appreciate that, Marianne. And today we're just going to talk about specifically the goal writing aspects of our performance evaluations that we need to write every year for all of our staff. Our objectives today are to discuss what the concept is of SMART goal writing. What are the elements of that? We're going to talk about some do's and don'ts to keep in mind when you're writing them. And then at the end, we'll look at just a couple of examples of some good and bad goals. Okay, so why do we do evaluations anyway? I pulled this text specifically from our own employee performance evaluation manual on StaffSpace, and I think this is a good thing to look at once a year when you sit down to look at evaluations and to go through this process. I think it's a good idea to just kind of review what it is that we're trying to accomplish when we work on the evaluation as a whole and to identify goals for your employees. So, and the very first thing that's listed, of course, is set goals to be carried out for the year. I'll let you read this at your own leisure, but I did want to point out that this is available on StaffSpace, and I think it's a good thing to read and review just to get yourself in the right mindset of what you're trying to do. Next, the thing you want to do is to gather together the resources that you need to get started. So first you want to have copies of the job descriptions for all your employees, all the forms you need, and you can download those from StaffSpace. There's a Human Resources tab specifically on StaffSpace to collect all of these documents in one area. And then last year's evaluation for that employee, if they have been here long enough to have had an evaluation from last year. So you want to have that on hand as well, so you can review how you rated them last year as well as what their goals were that you're supposed to be evaluating, whether they accomplished. You want to have their self-evaluation of what they're evaluating for this year, this current 2012. And then also hopefully you and your employee kept track of their service records for the year, as well as what Marianne can provide you. Besides just the training courses they've taken, hopefully you've kept track of any awards they've won or any specific accomplishments. Maybe they presented an especially great program that got a lot of praise and attendance. Maybe they did some incredible displays for you. Whatever it is that you've taken note of throughout the year, you want to have that on hand to help you as prompts when you're writing their evaluation. And then lastly, you want to have a copy of the new strategic plan on hand, which we have just completed writing in the fall of 2012, and it's been posted on StaffSpace under the Strategic Plans tab. So you want to have that on hand as well to make sure that your goals are falling in line with the overall mission, strategies, and desired results of the organization. And here I'm showing you a screenshot from StaffSpace where you can find the strategic plan. If you haven't taken note of that, where it is on StaffSpace. Under the Resources tab, there is, as you can see with the black arrow there, a link that says Strategic Plans, and you can look at the old ones as well. If you don't remember exactly how what changes were made from the last plan to the new plan, you can look at both. And then I've got a screenshot from some of the elements of the new strategic plan. So you can, it's about a 7-page document. You can look through that document pretty quickly to see the overall plan for the organization. A couple of optional things you might want to have on hand. Actually, I moved this from optional to something you really might want to consider having handy, is the competency index for the library field, and I'll show you a screenshot of that in a moment as well. The competency index is a very large document that was a collaborative document that is designed for public library and academic libraries through industry-wide. So it covers a large grouping of job descriptions in the library field, all the different types of competencies that are necessary to do very specific types of jobs. This is an extremely helpful document when you're trying to come up with ideas of ways you might want to develop a certain staff member's skill sets. The Core Competencies Committee here at Huntsville Public also used that document when they were working on the core competencies for our organization as a whole. So it's just a wonderful document. Some of the optional things you might want to have on hand are some books and handouts that I'll detail here in just a second. Okay, here are some screenshots of some books. The Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies book is one that I personally bought just to have a personal copy of, to have on hand. I find it very helpful to leaf through, to come up with phrases and ideas on how to word things. Very helpful. The other two are ones that I believe that we have still in the library system as well. We have similar types of books also, not just those two. So you might want to check out one of those books to have on hand when you do your evaluations. The handouts that I have screenshots of are available. You can contact me directly, or you may download these from the Staff Space Classroom website. I have created a learning module on writing goals, and those two documents, those handouts, among some other documents, are available for viewing or download from that Moodle classroom space. Now here's the screenshots from the competency index I was talking about earlier. That document is available for viewing and download from WebJunction, but I've also uploaded that to Moodle as well. So you can either view it or download a copy. It's a fairly large PDF document, I think maybe 76, 78 pages, something like that. But as you can see from the insert screenshot I have there for a children's services librarian, you get an idea of the type of detailed information you get when you view that the certain job descriptions and skills and competencies associated with that job description. It's just an incredible resource that I'd like to see everyone use more frequently, because it can help you identify more completely what skill set your employee already possesses and maybe what they're lacking and what they should work on. Okay, let's get started. Goal writing. First of all, let's give it a definition. A goal is a written definition of what you expect to accomplish within a specific period of time. So I love that equation. When I saw that, I got most of this material actually from material that Marianne gave us at a managers meeting many years ago, and I've always hung on to those materials and used them year after year because it defines all of this information so succinctly and clearly understandably. A goal is a desired result. If you can keep that one equation in your mind the whole time you're working on goals, you've pretty much got it in the bag. All this other stuff is great, but if you take away one concept, that is the one thing that's going to carry you forward into writing effective goals. What is it that you're wanting to get to? Where do you want to be at the end of this time period that you're setting? Usually it's a year, but sometimes you can set long-range goals as well that take 2 and 3 years. What is that finish line? What are you trying to achieve? If you can keep that equation in mind, you're going to get where you want to go. So what are the different elements of the goal? First, you've got the goal statement, which is you actually write down. It seems obvious, but it's the actual wording of the goal. Your action plan. Well, what steps are you going to take to achieve that goal? Your timeline. If you don't have a timeline, it's not really a goal, because you have to have, whether it's you break it down into months or years, however you're going to set it, that's fine, but you have to have an end point to be able to determine whether you've at some point crossed that finish line. And then also a performance measure. How do you know whether you really succeeded? That's why you've got goalposts, so that you know that you succeeded because the ball went through the goalposts. If it goes to the right or the left, you didn't succeed. So you've got to have some way to determine whether you actually achieved what you were trying to achieve. Okay, so the S.M.A.R.T goals is just a mnemonic device to help you remember these different elements. S, specific, M, measurable, A, attainable, R, relevant, and T, time limited. And we're going to go over all of these different elements in a minute. And it's not necessarily imperative that you remember what the mnemonic device stands for, but for some people that can be helpful to remember the elements. Okay, so now we're just going to define some do's and don'ts, and this will help you get a better idea of what SMART goals are used for. First of all, it is a formally written statement, and I know that seems perfectly obvious, but the way to think about it is, okay, as you're doing your job every day, you probably come up with ideas all the time. of things that you want to accomplish, that you want your department or your branch to accomplish. And these are sort of your sort of informally goal setting all the time, thinking about things you want to change, things you want to do. And none of these things will get done ultimately unless you write them down, because the things that we write down are the things that we are accountable for. You automatically prioritize something if it's written down, put in a document that you sign, your boss signs, etc. So some of these other things, may accidentally get done too, and that's great, but the things that you actually write down are the things that are most likely going to be accomplished, or at least accomplished first. Okay, they should be specific, not just generalized hopes of a better performance. And this is something that you'll see when you're reading some of your staff's self-evaluations. Very often they'll write things like very generalized, like, well, my goal for the year is to do a better job with my shelving, or something, or do a better job, be a better team member. Well, that's great, but that's not really particularly definable. Exactly in what way are you going to be a better shelver, and in what way are you going to be a better team member? So you've got to think about goals as being much more specific and measurable. And that's another way of determining, am I being specific enough? Because if it's not measurable, it probably isn't specific enough. So you have to have some way to determine, in what way were you a better shelver? Are we going to, actually track the amount of materials that you get done on a specific day and compare those statistics to last year to see if perhaps you're being more efficient? I don't know that you would really want to do that, but you've got to have some measure of success to determine whether you actually accomplished anything. Okay, goals should be attainable. This is an easy trap to fall into for overachievers, is you set goals that are unrealistic or unattainable. And that's an easy way of setting yourself up for defeat, for failure. And you absolutely don't want to do that, because you could end up having to give bad marks to a great employee. No one wants to do that. Plus, it can affect self-esteem and morale, that kind of thing. If you set yourself up to do all these amazing things, and lo and behold, you don't accomplish them because you didn't have the resources, you didn't have the time, you didn't have the expertise, etc. You've set yourself up for failure, or you've set that employee up for failure. Nobody wins in that scenario. Okay, goals must fall within the employee's area of responsibility. This is another easy trap to fall into, because most of us who work in public libraries are passionate about what we do, and even if we have a very specific job description and we contribute to the organization in a very specific way, we're still passionate about library work as a whole and excited to see what our other colleagues are doing and that kind of thing. So it's really easy to get excited about an idea and try to pursue it without thinking through whether it really falls within your area of responsibility or your department or branch's area of responsibility. I'll give you an example. One day, David, Lily, and I were sitting around. We had read an article about another library who had done a baby bee. It was like the spelling bee for really little kids, like 4 and 5 years old. And we just thought this was the cutest idea. Wouldn't this be wonderful? Wouldn't it be great for reference to sponsor such a thing? We had a fun time talking about it for 15, 20 minutes, and then we realized, wait, we're reference. We have no business setting up a baby bee. This would be something that youth services would do. This does not fall within our area of responsibility. So it's an easy thing to get wrapped up in a great idea without necessarily thinking it through. So that's something you do have to take into consideration when you're looking at the goals that your employees have written for themselves and the goals that you write for them. You have a limited amount of staff hours. Are these goals going to be the ones that most accomplish what you're trying to achieve as a department or as a branch? Keep that in mind all the time. Goals must have a timeline. We've touched on that before. And it's perfectly fine to have goals that have different timelines. You don't have to write 3 goals that all of them end in a year. If you do, that's fine too. But if you want to have maybe one more short-term goal that takes 6 months, one that takes a year, and then maybe one that is a 3-year goal, and the one that you're writing is just going to cover the work that they're going to accomplish in that first year, but then you make reference to things that will happen in years 2 and 3. That's cool, and that's perfectly acceptable, but there does have to be that time element involved. And they should take time and effort. So if you set someone a goal, or if they set one for themselves that can be accomplished on, say, a Tuesday afternoon, that's really not a SMART goal. That's not something that's genuinely going to positively impact the work or the development of that employee. So, for example, let's say an employee writes for himself, one of their goals for the year is going to be to make a new sign for the young adult reference collection. Well, unless you're hand carving that sign out of granite, it's not going to take a particularly long time to remake one sign for one particular part of the collection. So maybe a more appropriate goal would be that staff member is going to evaluate signage throughout the library and make all the signage consistent, and evaluate the size and font needed, and etc. That kind of thing. Make it a more robust goal. They should also not restate the job description. And you might be thinking, well, Mary, that's pretty obvious. But honestly, that is something that I see a lot. It's an easy trap to fall into, that especially when I'm reading the staff's self-evaluations, they'll write, well, my goals for the year are to shelve and serve customers. Well, that's what you're supposed to do. That's not a goal. That's just simply your job description. That's great that you want to do your job, but right now we're trying to set goals on how for you to do your job better. So you want to think about, okay, if you want to focus on shelving as one of your goals, let's talk about ways that you might innovate our shelving process, or ways that you can make the process more efficient, or something like that. There has to be some sort of improvement involved. Do not confuse an action with a goal. This is probably, I think, one of the most common errors because it's so easy to make. You have to keep that equation in your mind at all times. A goal is a desired result. An action is one of the steps that you're going to take to get you to that desired result. So here, I'll give you a common example of something that I see. An employee will write for themselves, my goal is to take Microsoft Word 1, 2, and 3 in the Computer Training Center this year. Well, that's an action. To take those classes is an action. The actual desired result that employee is trying to achieve is to have better Microsoft Word skills, probably so they can do their job more efficiently, as well as to help customers more efficiently. So the desired result is to be more skilled in Microsoft Word. The goal is not to take classes. The goal is to have those skills. So your action plan, which would come right after your goal statement, would say that they're going to take these classes. Okay, goals should be prioritized. We also kind of touched on this. The employee is going to set forward in their self-evaluation some goals that they have in mind for themselves. But then your job as the manager is to look at those goals and say, well, are those the goals that are most important this year for us to achieve the overall work plan I have for my department or for my branch? What are the overall goals that I have for my work unit? Are those goals for that individual going to best serve what I'm trying to accomplish as a whole, and what we are trying to accomplish as an organization as a whole? So even though they might be great goals, you have to step back and think, okay, are these the most effective goals for this year? And if they're not, maybe you need to add another goal, or maybe you need to talk to an employee and say, well, I think this goal is great, but let's push it off a year because I have some things that you need to work on this year that I think are a little more important. So you have to prioritize. And then ultimately these goals should support the strategic plan, and we talked about how to access that plan. The plan is a living document, and unless you and I as managers and staff members actively work on elements and actions to achieve the elements in that strategic plan, it's never going to happen. It's just going to be a piece of paper that resides in cyberspace. But if you and I look at this plan and formulate our goals for our individual staff members and for our departments and branches to serve that plan, then we're going to move forward and achieve some of the key strategies and desired results that are stated in that plan. Okay, now this part of it is not necessarily something you have to state when you're writing your goal statements, but it is something that I find helpful when I'm writing the goal statement to analyze what kind of goal this is, what am I trying to achieve. So there are at least 4 basic types of goals. The maintenance goal deals with your ongoing job responsibilities. What are the things that that employee always does? It's part of their job description. In what way are they going to extend those skills, keep those skills up, or extend that output in some way? For example, let's say one of your staff members is in charge of a book club for you. Maybe you want to set some benchmarks of increased attendance or increased more positive feedbacks. In some way you want these book clubs to be more effective. To me, that's a maintenance goal. Unless the book club is absolutely not working and you're asking this employee to completely rejuvenate the club, that might be a different kind of goal. But if the club is working just fine, but you're trying to improve output in some way, then I would consider that a maintenance goal. And these are kind of gray areas in some ways. This is an art, not a science. Innovative goals involve things that have new plans or some sort of big change. And it's usually a one-time effort. So maybe your branch doesn't have any book clubs at all, and so you're wanting the staff member to evaluate demand for a book club and what type of book club your population will be interested in, and then actually start one and run it and get it going and build up an audience and that kind of thing. That would be a more innovative goal. Developmental goals deal with learning new skills. And in some ways, starting a book club might be a developmental skill as well, because there are skills involved in marketing, in actually running a book club, because you have to develop the skill of being able to be comfortable around strangers, leading a discussion, directing that discussion, picking out proper materials for the club to read. There are a lot of skills involved in running a book club. So if you're trying to identify developmental skills involved with running a book club, so that might turn into two goals for that particular employee. If you're having them start a book club, it might be an innovative goal of actually starting the club, and then developmental goals associated with the skills to run an effective one, just as an example. Problem-solving goals. This would be if you have your existing book club and it's doing very poorly, and so you have a problem here. You have a club that is underperforming, and so you're tasking that staff member with determining, well, do we want to keep offering this club, and if so, how are we going to change it so that it is effective, so that it is an effective and well-utilized service. So that staff member would need to identify why it's not working and potential ways in which it might be changed. So that would be a problem-solving goal. Okay, now we're going to move on to just a couple of examples. In this first scenario, Patrice Williams is the bookkeeper for the Canfield County Public Library System. She has an undergraduate degree in business and has been on staff for 3 years. Because of her limited accounting training, Patrice has struggled to learn Canfield's Byzantine accounting system. The auditors have asked the library to migrate to new bookkeeping software. This frustrates Patrice since she has finally learned the old system. So she writes this goal for herself. Patrice Williams will begin using Books Plus accounting software. Is this a good goal? Well, in my opinion, it's not a particularly good goal. Number one, because it doesn't have a timeline. Well, when exactly is she going to start using Book Plus accounting software? This is fictional software, by the way. In my mind, a better goal would be, as I've restated, Patrice Williams will plan and execute the transition of Canfield County Public Library's bookkeeping from basic books to Books Plus by fiscal year 2014. So you've got at least now an overall timeline involved here and as it's stated here, it also gives her a little more due it implies that there is a process that is involved here. The way that she stated it, it kind of makes it sound like it's not a particularly challenging goal, like she's just going to flip a switch and start using a different program the next day. If that were truly the case, that wouldn't be a goal because it was something that she could accomplish extremely easily. So you want your goals to communicate the difficulty involved in what she's trying to do as well. You could even break this goal up into a couple of goals because most likely she's going to have a developmental goal that goes along with this that says that she's got to learn Books Plus. I mean, she just finally got a handle on basic books. Now she's got to step back and have this developmental goal that goes along with this to learn Books Plus. You're going to have action steps associated with that developmental goal. And then she'll have action steps and probably a fairly detailed timeline for this one as well on how she's going to execute this transition because it could be particularly complicated. Okay, example number 2. Marcus McMasters is the bookmobile librarian for the Canfield County Public Library System. He is a former social worker who views his work more generally as a social service than simply as distributing library materials. He has been the bookmobile librarian for 1 year and is very passionate about his job. He reports to the head of Outreach Services, who manages the department of 4 full-time professionals. So Marcus writes the following goal for himself. Marcus Masters will forge a new partnership with Heart to Home, Inc. to provide library materials to homebound populations in Canfield County. Marcus will create a deposit collection for Heart to Home volunteers to circulate to clients biweekly. Is this a good goal? Well, on the surface, it sounds like a fantastic goal. It sounds really, really great. But if you step back and look at it a little more critically, you realize, wait a minute, they have a pretty big outreach department. They have 4 full-time professionals. Is Marcus's area of responsibility working with the homebound? Probably not, since he's the bookmobile librarian. He might ultimately be tasked with that if it was a very small department and he was doing outreach to all types of populations through the bookmobile. But my suspicion is that since this department is so large and they have 4 full-time professionals besides him, he's probably not tasked with working with the homebound. So most likely this goal falls outside of his area of responsibility. So if I were his manager, I would step back and say, okay, Marcus, this goal is wonderful, and I want you to work with so-and-so who already works with the homebound, and you guys can get together and you can help her with her project, that kind of thing. But your goal needs to be more associated with, your stated goals need to be more associated with your particular area of responsibility. And so I would probably pick something to develop his collection development skills. He's only been on the job a year. He wasn't a librarian before. He probably doesn't necessarily have really, really sharp collection development skills. I would wonder whether he had the skills to pick exactly the right books for his populations yet with just a year on the job. So I would pick a collection development goal, which would be developmental. Okay, so those are my 2 examples. I have 3 more just like those that I have put on the Staff Space Classroom. If you click on list all the courses when you're on the front page of Moodle, you'll see that there is this SMART goal writing module under the personnel management section. And I have you can access this video, which you can watch again. You can access some handouts that I've uploaded, as well as the 3 goal writing scenarios with questions that you can answer there on StaffSpace, on Moodle. If you enroll in this course, it will record your answers, and either if you'd like me to look at your answers, I will, or your immediate supervisor can go in and look at your answers if you would like to get feedback on the work that you do. Otherwise, you're just welcome to look at them and use them for your own development on your own time. Here's just a list of some resources that I've used in developing this course. As I said, the Performance Appraisals and Phrases for Dummies is a book that I personally bought because I enjoy it and I use it on a regular basis. And then the other materials are ones that Marianne found for us years ago, and I've always gone back to and referred to. So thanks go to Marianne for helping me put this together. If you have any questions about this course, or if you want some further help with this material, feel free to contact me in reference. My email is mmoore@hmcpl.org, and my phone number is 532-5972. Thanks.